with this here like that. It's because I've got to nip out and go into jiu-jitsu and take a risk getting smashed up on the mats, which is what you have to do when you start. So I was listening to, I've put the link down below in the description about a little reel that was Chris Eubank Sr. talking about taking risks. And I mean, just watch it, right? It's really good. He explains, what risks are when you take a risk. I think he says something like, if you risk laughing, you risk getting seen a fool. If you risk reaching out to someone, you risk rejection. If you risk love, you risk not being loved back. How many of us have felt that? If you risk everything against all the odds, you risk failure. And I talked about this yesterday. But then he goes on to say that, but to not risk, we have to risk because it's like the greatest thing in the world to get what we want. But to not risk, and he goes on to say that the person that doesn't risk anything is nothing. That person gets nothing, does nothing, is nothing. And that's how I see it when it comes to taking risks. I've done quite a few videos on it. I like taking risks. But how many times when you take a risk and you think, my risk tolerance allows me to take risks on things that maybe the odds are not actually that good. And I do talk about, I think what you should do when making a decision is look for an asymmetrical upside, right? And depending on your risk tolerance, usually that upside has to be far outweigh the negative. I think it's something like I always say, it's in the book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman. That's what the book's about. The upside has to be 1.5 to 2.5 times the downside in order for most people to take a risk. And you should train yourself to look for any asymmetrical upside on small risks. So if it's slightly in your favour, go for it. But the amount of times, I think, fucking hell, the amount of risks I've taken, and some of them have not gone well. Not gone in my favour. And I think back and think, oh God, do we have to suffer this? Because, the person that doesn't take a risk doesn't have to suffer, fine. But they tend to get nothing if you don't take a risk. You tend to end up getting nothing. You've got to break a few eggs and take a risk. Thank you very much. Yeah, that'd be appreciated. So yeah, you've got to break a few eggs to take a risk. And when the risk doesn't go your way, right, because this happens, even if you've calculated the odds and you've gone, that's worth taking a risk, I'm going to go for it, right? And when the risk doesn't go your way, what do? Well, you just accept it, right? You accept that there was always a chance that it could have gone that way. But more importantly, the next time round you see that opportunity, you take the same risk again on the same odds and not let the past affect your decision. You've got to take your emotions out of it and go for it. It's like playing poker. When you go around the board and the blinds go up, as the blinds go up, Do you become more risk averse? Because what happens, if you've ever been there, if you're a risky player and the blinds are going up and you're like, oh, I'm not risking a blind. If you know what a blind is there's a small amount of money that you must put in at certain intervals when you're going around the board, right? And it goes up, you can agree, every time round the board, you know, round the table, or every twice round the table, it goes up a little bit. And if you start getting more risk averse because the blinds are getting higher and your option not to put in a match the blind, you'll end up getting pushed out of the game because everyone's on the same odds. So the idea being is the risk is always proportional to that. Your measure is a blind. And you should play the same hand regardless of what happened previously, regardless of the size of that blind. It has the same potential to win or lose. Because what happens is you end up getting forced to put in blinds on hands you don't want to take a risk on. When you had the opportunity to put the blind in on a hand you could have took a risk on and you didn't. I don't play poker, by the way. Once a year I do it with my friends at Christmas. Just a friendly thing, but I don't so I don't gamble like that. I don't see that as smart risk taking at all. I take risks on real things, you know what I mean? I don't play the lottery because the odds are shit, right? Even though it's a small amount of money, the odds are shite, right? So it's not worth playing the lottery. It's worth taking a risk, creating a new business, reaching out to someone, you know, go and speaking to someone new. That's worth taking a risk. Developing a new connection, having the balls to go and do that, whether it's business, you know, you need a connection. Like today, I've got to go into the city. I'm not looking for, well, no, I'm kind of relishing it. I've got to go into the city and try and make some business connections. I tried to do it by email. And by email's like a keyboard warrior. You know, most people ignore it. So I've just thought, stuff it. I'm going to go into the city, take my products, and go in person and speak to the business owners. That's vulnerable, taking a risk. But I'm going to do that. But I'm not putting £1 on the lottery. Bollocks to that. Because that's not worth it, but I'll take a risk on business. Would you take a risk on loving someone, knowing that they might not love you back? That's quite an advanced topic and a deep topic. Most people won't. It's quite a hard thing to do. But love should be given freely. I don't want to, you know, we're not going to go on about that because it's a deeper topic, but there's an example. Would you risk being vulnerable? All right, lower level, would you risk being vulnerable and stick your neck out, go and speaking to a girl you like, or a guy if you're a girl, or whatever, you know? You know, it could be a girl likes a girl or whatever, you know? That person that you like, would you go and speak to them? Or would you hide your feelings? Because to not risk, the person that doesn't risk nothing. Yeah, they risk not getting the heart broken or not losing the money if you start a business or whatever. You risk no pain. But then you get nothing. You know, that person is nothing, does nothing, gets nothing. And, you know, this is why I always talk about taking risks and why it's important. And also train yourself. Look for an asymmetrical upside. Train your risk tolerance so you're doing it with a bit of thought and not your emotions. And it becomes quite powerful. Don't make reckless decisions. Calculated risks. It becomes quite powerful. But you know when, here's the thing, right? You start doing something new and then someone criticises you. Have you ever had that? See, that's usually someone that isn't prepared to take the risk that you have. Someone who sits on the sidelines. You don't get criticised by people that are trying to make the dent in the world, you know, trying to achieve things, who are successful. They don't criticise. But it doesn't matter. It's like, you take the risk, you risk being criticised. You know, you start a new business or whatever, you risk being criticised. And that's all right, that's good. Because you're taking the risk. Also, it's lonely as well, taking a risk, isn't it? It's vulnerable and lonely. But you need to do it. Sorry, I'm not reading these comments. Good morning, how you doing? Yeah. Fake. Yeah, I'm AI. I'm not this good looking in real life. Right, I'm going to shoot because what's that? Oh, I suppose I could carry this out. I've got to go to jiu-jitsu and train. So I could carry it out to the car, but no, I'm gonna go. Right. Thank you for listening. I might shoot another one later. Little short one on risk. If you join late, rewind it, listen to it again. All right. See you all next time.